So I thank you all for joining this ControlUp Community Meetup. This is our 11th meetup, and we're going to be doing a lot of these this year. I'm really looking forward to it. This one, it makes me very excited. I was a big fan of Avanite and the folks over at Avanite, and we acquired these guys, and which they helped us build this great new solution that Joel's going to talk about called ControlUp for Apps. So I'm really looking forward to it. I thank you, Joel, for taking the time to come and do this. The guy's a very busy person, so taking the time to do this is much appreciated. If you're not familiar with the ControlUp community, hopefully you're all members, but sometimes we get some folks that aren't that come on in and they want to watch our webinars and stuff like that, and that's great too, right? This is why we promote them publicly and what have you. But definitely join. In 2025, we are really going to ramp this thing up, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast. So what do I say? Communities for a place for you, of techie by techie for techie, right? Future meetups. We have a bunch of them in mind, but really this is all about you, right? So if there's topic areas that you want to learn about, please let me know. If there's, technology, maybe, it's a technology within a product that we can talk about for an entire hour, or maybe a few. Let us know, right? We want to help you, right? That's our goal. So please let us know, and we'll make a meetup or a webinar or something around it. Just let us know how we can help you. And the big thing I want to say is today, Joel's going to do a great job taking us through ControlUp for Apps, diving deep, answering questions, what have you. But after you get done with this, you might think, oh, I wish I would have asked that. Or, oh, this is really neat. I want to learn more. Or just sit through something and think, wow, I didn't know that. I just learned something I didn't know. I didn't know. Those are my favorites, right? This is what office hours are for. And Savan is absolutely wonderful. So please join her office hours. She does these all in once a month and on tons of different technologies. And so definitely do that. I'm going to put the links in the chat as soon as I close this down so that you have those and you can click and you can join either tomorrow or the next day. And again, in the future, she has many more. Reach out to her also in the community. She's an absolutely wonderful person. Last thing, this is my last slide, and then I'm done. I'm handing it over to Joel. And that is, please, if you have any questions, don't put them in chat. We'll lose it in the chat. Chat tends to fly by. Use that Q&A piece, right? So right down there, put in Q&A any questions you might have, and I'll try to interrupt Joel, or Joel seeing himself, and we'll get those things answered within context if we can, or we'll wait, or whatever, right? But use the Q&A piece. And that's all the slides I have for you. So yeah, Joel, thank you so much for doing this. Are you ready to woo
Yeah,
these
absolutely,
people with the
absolutely.
amazing technology called ControlUp for Apps?
Oh yeah, I'm going to actually talk about a whole bunch of other things as well that relate to ControlUp for apps. But so I don't know exactly what the rules are because I think the last time you and I did one of these with Jeff involved was when we launched Secure DX back in what was it, April timeframe.
Yeah.
But obviously, like you said, right, if you have questions, it's a little bit hard in the chat, so use the Q&A window. If it's a really hard question, we are even able to unmute you so that you can talk. I don't know if that's against the rules, dog, but
I don't know how to do that. Can we do that in a webinar? I don't
yeah,
know if we
yeah,
can
you
do it.
can.
Can
There's
we?
like a button when you hover over somebody's name and it says allowed to talk. It's
Well,
like,
we can figure that out.
yeah.
Well, I will try to figure this out
Yeah. All
on
right.
where would I
All
find
right.
this?
So let's
I'm in the
let's get
chat.
going.
Let's Hey,
For a minute.
real quick, before you
Yeah.
get going, you mentioned Secure DX. We have a new name for that.
I'm
So
going to
maybe
start
it's
with
a
that.
great
I'm
time
going to start
to
with
share
that.
this.
That's my
Yeah. So
slides.
what is the
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. See, Joel's
Yeah.
ahead of me. I'm going to
Yeah.
shut up. Joel, it's your
So
floor.
I was going to I saw your post of course on LinkedIn the other day and I'm like okay there we go right now I can't like use slides so I was going to take like screenshots of each one of my slides and then just use the screenshots because that's not PowerPoint right so I thought like okay that's too much of a fun joke to kind of like go through all that effort so I'll just use PowerPoint. Thought like maybe I should save it as a PDF and then show the PDF, but to get around the rules. But I do want to talk about product naming a little bit. So let me just pull up because I know that some people are kind of like following all these threads on the community. But
Name
maybe not.
changes are a big deal, right? I mean, we're all used to them, you know?
I
It's
mean,
like, come
you were
on.
at Citrix, I was at Citrix. We love our name changes. So the new product name is ControlUp MetaFrame. No, no, no. We're So a few years ago when we introduced like DX, right? We had real-time DX and Edge DX. That always there's an internal project, and we had a whole vote, and it wasn't my vote. I actually voted against the DXs because I was thinking like, hey, if I look at a product, I kind of like want to instantly know what it's for. And so after a short 3 year detour, we kind of like landed at what I was a big fan of was to more align the names with our technologies and kind of like instantly that you can say like, okay, I get it, what this is for. And that also aligns with how we kind of like talk about our platform. So we have our ControlUp ONE platform that is just the controller platform, but we now added the one because that's where all the technologies kind of like unify and come together. And I'm not going to go walk through this whole kind of like build out, but basically, in a nutshell, we have the employee in the center. We are a DEX platform. The E is for employee. So we are always starting from an employee centric approach. Now, sometimes the employee is your end user, right? That is obviously where we want to remove friction, where we want to resolve their tickets, or prevent their tickets, etc., etc. But there is another employee, which is the people on this call, right? The people who actually need to do the work. But in this picture, it is really focused around the employees, the end user, and obviously they interact with their with technology in the workplace, very often called the either the digital workplace. Some people say digital workspace, but that basically consists out of two things. It's a desktop and an application, or a bunch of applications, and we build in some nuance because of our background in VDI. So we kind of like talk about desktops. These are either cloud desktops or physical desktops, Windows machines, Mac OS, Linux. I have a whole bunch of things here. You can't really see. You can like see a little bit. There's a Chromebook over there in the corner here. There's more stuff here. I got a whole command center going on. But then there's of course the virtual desktop. So you're kind of like traditional VDI and DAS, your Citrix, your Omnisas, your AVDs. That obviously is kind of like the connection point where the user starts. And then on top of that, we have the applications. So we have desktops, VDI, applications, and then our platform kind of like takes care of everything when it relates to friction or preventing friction for the end user. So that means that we have an optimized performance, we have optimized productivity, so really avoiding issues, and if issues happen, fix them quickly, and also making sure that the digital workplace is compliant. And we do that through our three C's. So you might have heard us talk about collect, connect, and correct. In a nutshell, it really means we collect the data, no matter if those are metrics from an agent or through an API. If this is through surveys like user sentiment, availability through synthetic testing, we bring all that data together in our platform. We give you the tools to connect the dots. In other words, no matter if you prefer using a chatbot or if you prefer working with dashboards or just to kind of like get notified, etc. Really the starting point of the journey to remove the friction, which is the third C, which is correct. And this can come in many shapes and forms. It could be through a automated remediation. It could be through a remote assistance. It could be deploying a patch. And this is kind of like what makes up the ControlUp ONE platform. Now, to go back to the product names, it's very simple. We have ControlUp for desktops, for your desktops. We have ControlUp for VDI, for your VDI and DAS environment. We have ControlUp for apps, for your apps. And we have ControlUp for compliance, to making sure that the digital workplace is compliant. Fairly straightforward as far as naming, in my opinion. But what we're here to talk about today is particularly ControlUp for apps. Now, before I move on, ControlUp for apps today, if you look at the SKU or the product or the technology you enable, is focused on SaaS applications. In the future, you will see the worlds of local applications and SaaS applications and synthetic SaaS testing and security, compliance, shadow SaaS, kind of like becoming more and more together in our interface. What we're going to see today is the start of that journey. That means when you talk about ControlUp for SaaS, what we're really talking about is SaaS applications. Control for apps, we're talking about SaaS applications. So there will be some further evolution throughout the year where if somebody says, hey, go to the apps tab in the product, that will then have more than just SaaS applications. But as of today, as of our launch last week, it is really talking about SaaS applications, but you will see some further evolution for that happening over the next years, but definitely already this year. All right.
That's great
So,
to hear, Joel. That's really great to hear. And I love SaaS applications because in my day, I probably spend 95% of my day in a SaaS application, right? And I bet
um,
you do too, minus, some consoles or Slack. Although you can
I like
use
my local
Slack in a SaaS.
PowerPoint and I like my
Yeah,
local Slack, but for the rest, it's mostly SaaS and
yeah.
web applications. Absolutely.
I
Yep.
mean, if I can get away, I prefer local. Always have preferred local. But what I realize is I spend my time in SaaS. So anyway, I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, I love to be interrupted because I love questions better than me just doing a monologue for 50 minutes.
Yeah,
So
I'll
thank
let
you.
you get back to it.
Yeah. All right. So for those people that are familiar with what we do at ControlUp, you probably already know this, but we already monitor your physical endpoint device, no matter if that's Windows, Linux, Chrome OS, Mac OS, a thin client. And we bring health information and device metrics into our product. Then we bring in your connectivity information. For example, is there any latency? How is your Wi-Fi connectivity? Things like that. We bring in information about your processes, including your browser processes. And, very topical for today, of course. We're talking about SaaS application monitoring. There is something around that SaaS application, which is, of course, a browser. Then we bring in, if you have configured those privacy settings, even the URLs that your end users are visiting. And we bring all these things together in an experience score, an employee experience score. And this is something that we've been doing for a while. VDI is in there as well. And we'll see that here in the demo here in a minute. But one thing that we don't include in there, or which we haven't included in there, is the SaaS application experience itself. And that is where ControlUp for apps comes in. All right. Here I'm going to kind of like drop off the PowerPoint. I
I
can
have a
bring it
quick
back.
question.
Yeah.
Before you drop from the PowerPoint, or you can drop from the PowerPoint as I'm asking the question if you want. But it's a great question and it should be answered now. How can we use ControlUp for apps? What license does a customer need? Is it already included in a certain license type?
I see Ashley's question. So it is a good question. So for customers that have purchased our platform license, so that is a special kind of like enterprise license. So if you have purchased a platform license, it is included. For those that don't have it, you can get it as an add-on module on top of ControlUp for Desktops Advanced. So currently, it does require ControlUp for Desktops, the Advanced Edition, to be included or to be able to get it as an optional add-on module. Now, what is the best option for you? Because we're not going to talk about pricing. We're not going to talk about, well, how many do I need? Reach out to your account team. They are more than happy to kind of like work with you and work through the options and kind of like explain what your options are in detail. But that is it in a nutshell. And let me find my focus. All right, there we
Perfect. Thank
go.
you.
I closed down the Q&A window, so let
Hey,
me
one
just,
more question. If
yeah.
somebody wants to try it, do we have demos? Do we have evals? That's a biggie, right? I knew
Yes.
you. I'm sorry. I know it's something we're working. Yeah.
Uh,
So
so,
we're gonna get the question. I have to ask it.
all right. So, let me just, you can still see my screen, yeah? You see the green, amber, red
Yeah.
thing. All right, good. So, everybody should have this icon here in the on the left side where it says it's like the three squares with the plus sign that says apps. Now, the plan was for us to kind of like you could click on there and then you could say start trial. Unfortunately, some technology related issues prevented us from having that on day one. So we're currently working through the motion of giving everybody the ability to self start a trial. But if you don't want to wait for that, you can reach out to your account team and they can actually manually enable that for you on the back end. Now, the moment they do that, the 21 days start. So make sure that you can like coordinate, like, oh, when do you want to do this? And they can make sure that you can start your 21-day controller for apps trial. All right. I see that there's chatter going on. Okay, dog is in there. Perfect. All right. So now, before I go into the details or the more into the details on ControlUp for apps, when I showed you that circular wheel earlier, as I said, well, we'll always start with the employee, and that's what I want to do today as well, starting with the employee and employee centric. And as part of this launch, not part of the ControlUp apps feature set, we also introduced an updated employee-centric dashboard. Again, this requires ControlUp for desktops, Advanced Edition. But for those people that are already using that, it basically is the best starting point for IT admins, desktop admins, but also for service desk. And you can either uh, yeah, just if a user opens a ticket, I can find them. There's not that many users. You see 11 people in my environment, but I can, like some people might know Trenton. So Trenton is on here and I'm on here. This is our kind of like tech lab environment. I have my non-existing friend Patty, and we'll talk more about her. But I can just go directly to a single user, or if I want to be more proactive, I can look at this beautiful stack bar. I can say, oh, well, red is bad, right? Dog, red, bad. Exactly. So I can click on it, say, okay, let's just look at the poor users. You're muted. Are you talking to me? No, we're good. All right. All right. So we click on poor, and there we go. We now looked at February, what is it today? February 18th. At those users that are having a poor experience. And we see that Patty and Timothy in our team. So I'm just going to click here on Patty because there seems to be some issues going on. And this brings us to our brand new released last week Tuesday individual employee dashboard. So I'm just looking at Patty. I can like drill down from the 18th. So I'm just looking at today. And yes, I was really up at 3 a.m. I have my reasons, but that's when I started. I switched on this laptop standing here to the left of me, by the way. And here you can see I didn't do a whole lot at first, but then I started, kind of like preparing for a session today. I'm also preparing for our customer webinar tomorrow and some other things that are going on. So here am I looking at what, in this case, a demo device, so you can see big gaps of like not much activity and not much going on. But this is really tailored towards, hey, a user calls in, something is slow, right? Often end users are not that clear in what might be slow, but this gives you a great starting point to kind of like vertically correlate on where there's issues, right? I can quickly see, for example, let me just zoom in on this hour, right? I can just click on the 11. Is it 11? Yeah, it's 11. And as you can see, it now tells me, okay, just for this hour, now we're only 22 minutes into the hour, right? So there's real-time data here. It's not like And you can see, yeah, it's not like some other solutions that maybe update this like every 15 minutes or even like only a few times a day. This is real-time data. And I can see that, I can even expand here what applications were in use during this time frame. So apparently Office is the current active app. There's no issues with it. But earlier there were some issues with another app. In this case, uh, it's not a real app. It's an app that I created, but I can kind of like quickly see, okay, what kind of issue was there? We see here, let me just move this icon out of the way. I can see here that there was an issue with accessing this app. There was a 404. I can even get like a screenshot. Again, this is something that you can enable or disable, but this helps me get really quickly to the source of the problem, the root of the problem. Now, there's of course other ways we can get there as well. I could have, let me just zoom out a little bit because I did that a little bit earlier. So I can click on the zoom out button here. Now I'm back kind of like at the 2-day view. So let me just go to today. You can also just, yeah, select a very specific time. But you can also see that there were some issues with Citrix earlier. Right, so I was connected from this device, from my physical device here, and there it is, Joel XPS laptop. I was active, I was connected to this Wi-Fi. There weren't any Wi-Fi issues. If there was a Wi-Fi issue, this one would light up amber or red. If there was a device issue like here, right, you see here that, oh, there's some kind of CPU load issue. I'm not sure why that's going on. I normally can hear it blowing the fan, but even Citrix sessions are being brought in. So if I'm connected to, for example, earlier, and I'm not sure why it is, maybe it might be a Zoom issue here. But I even get details from a remote session. So not from the physical endpoint as well at itself, but even from a remote session. But I can quickly correlate, just visually, like, oh, what was going on. If that is not my jam, I can just click on this red bar and it gives me much more details about the device. So I clicked on this 1 hour between 10 and 11. You can see of that 1 hour, 58 was just fine. There was only 1 minute of poor experience, but it gives me quick details on what are the top processes that we're running, what, kind of like events happened that negatively affected the experience. Um, Let's see here. Let me just go. Oh, there was no issue there. There was a remote control session, which was myself. Hold on. Let me just go to today. Just zoom in. Here, for example, there was a shutdown happening, a remote control session. Oh, I forgot. I didn't have any app crashes. But if there were app crashes on this device, let me see if I can find a user that had any app crashes. Oh, well, that is, of course, typical. Uh, Not enough app crashes going on, which is probably a good thing in a production environment. But I can even see if there were like app crashes going on. So maybe it was, well, I probably should have prepared like an app crash. Maybe I can yell at my computer, but it doesn't matter if this was an app crash or an app freeze or CPU load or memory or on the device or on Citrix or on Omnissa or things like that. Or what we're here to talk about today, as I showed, a issue with the application. And I have this page load error, right? We saw that the 404 very clearly, with a screenshot. But it's not just page load error. So let me just connect to the remote control so that I don't have to disappear out of the screen. Now, again, I can quickly go to more device details here. So I have my device details, the high level. But if I click on more details, it actually brings us to the ControlUp for Desktops interface, which provides much more information. I can run scripts from here and I can do remote control from here. So I'm just going to do that so that I don't have to dive to the left side here when I'm doing the demo. And you can see I actually have a, let me just like quickly show you. I have like like one of those portrait monitors attached to it. Um, um, that's why you kind of like see this weird little screen behind it. Um, I can just zoom in on the internal display to make it a little bit more manageable, right? So if you're using this tool to remotely assist end users, you can also just zoom in on one display. And I can zoom in further. Somebody has like a very big screen and I'm working on a very small one. Sometimes, I maybe not really can see it, so I can zoom in. But in this case, I don't need to do that. And you see that Outlook is open. Now going back to this user, let me just put the last hour here. You can see that that is indeed the current active app, right? Outlook here. Nothing going on with that. That's good. Good news. But let's just pick another app here. Let me just go back to my little demo app. So yeah, it's for those people that sometimes need to demo solutions like me. You can't really leave things to chance, right? Like hoping that an application breaks. That would, of course, be perfect, right? If I can just call Microsoft, say, "Hey, can you slow down my application?" So I just created, this little app myself so that I can create the conditions. But imagine this would be a SaaS application, a web application. This could be, obviously, this is in-house, right? I'm not selling this ControlUp for Apps demo app. If anybody wants to buy it, it's for sale. But this is something that could be any application that you want to monitor. So now, if I refresh this, what should happen is at one point, and you can see actually in the last minute, right? So this is in the last kind of like 5 minute frame, the active app changed. So the foreground app. So we monitor, also which application is in the foreground because we believe that an experience score, an employee experience score, is about what the employee is experiencing, right? So, um, first of all, that means that we make sure that there's activity, right? Mouse and keyboard information. If I'm like sitting on my porch not doing work, then I don't have a negative employee experience. It might actually be even better. I live in Orlando, weather's nice, so good experience. But we also take into consideration what app is in the foreground, right? If there's some user input delay on an app that's behind the window that I'm not using at the moment, who cares, right? That is not an employee experience, right? Employee is what I'm interacting with. So I changed the foreground app. It's now script based. As you can see, there it is. Now I can do other things. I can create a slow backend load time. So let's talk about loading web pages or loading SaaS applications. You can see that there is this little icon over here, an icon that can be hidden, by the way. You don't have to show that to the end user. I like to show it for this demo. But what you see is when I click that, it actually picked up what happened. So it loaded this page and it kind of like measured the time it took. Now, again, this is like a fake app, right? Where I generate backend load time. So you can see if I hover over it, it's very hard to see because my mouse cursor is like extra big and it kind of like goes over that. But you have to believe me that it says 5 seconds, etc. I can actually see it. Oh, there we go. It just got smaller because of the remote control. We sometimes increase the size, but you can see it's like 5,000 milliseconds. So it captured that event. And for those people who are paying attention, you see in the background that something lit up. And what you can see here is that it actually picked up that 5 second load time, right? So again, immediately in real time, when something happens with an application, you will be able to see it. You will be able to understand, is there a page load issue? Was there a hard error, as we call it, right? For those people who are familiar with web applications or websites, Errors happen all the time. For those people who are comfortable with it, pull up F12, click on F12 in your browser, and just see what is going on. There's errors all the time. I use a Pi-hole to block ads on my network. I'm getting a lot of errors, and half of these errors, the majority of these errors, I don't care about. Right? It's not affecting my user experience. It's not stopping me from using a website, or it might stop me from buying stuff because I'm not seeing ads. But if we look at a SaaS application, it basically will, yeah, just continue to work, right? If an icon doesn't load or whatever, typically, and we call those soft errors, but hard errors are the ones that we looked at earlier, like a 404. Everything in the 400 range and in the 500 range are typically the errors that impact end user experience, right? A page doesn't load, something breaks, I can't do my work. So we capture both errors, but here we will only show the hard errors. And as you can see here, it also shows you these page load times. And let me just do a click refresh because sometimes it needs to kind of could take a second for the kind of like data. So the data is already there, but there's a short delay in actually before I can see the data here in the interface. So let me just in the meantime create another one. That was backend. Let me just do a client load time. Again, there's a delay here. You can see it. In this case, it's not the blue one, it's the purple one. And you can see there was a approximately 3 second client load time, and that will pop up here in a minute as well. But let's see if this one, I don't know what's going on there. Just do a quick refresh. Wouldn't be a good demo if something doesn't happen, right? So.
Always the case. Better you
Yeah.
than me.
Let me just go back and forth. I hope there's like a PM on the call. Like,
Be
uh,
honest with you, sometimes I like when there's problems on webinars. You watch the guy troubleshoot it, which you actually learn a lot from somebody watching them troubleshoot. Although when they're on a call, you just start freaking out because there's people watching you troubleshoot, and every techie on this call knows what that feels like when you have someone looking over your shoulder. So,
yeah. So I'm just going to pick an earlier time frame because this is why you're prepared, right? This is why you always create some errors earlier in the week or last week where you can actually there we go. So page load. So imagine that this was what I just did. I'm not sure. I'll look into it later to see why it actually is not displaying. I'll find somebody to blame. Um, it's totally possible that I'm doing something wrong here, but I just tend to be very technical. But if there
Eugene
would
has
be,
an answer for you. Eugene has an answer. He said it's to the right. It's already showing.
it is showing on the bar, but it wasn't showing when I clicked on it. It was an empty blade, so
Ah,
I don't know why it didn't show me the data on the blade, but I'm just going to go to this one from last week and look at that. I have them there. So you can see
excellent.
that, it breaks down the different stages. There's actually 4 stages. It, when you look at it, there's local, connect, backend, and client. Uh, sorry, connect and local are all like kind of like there could be certain redirects all happening on the device when you type something in the browser. There's some network stuff going on like DNS lookups, right? So those are certain stages that could have errors, but what we see the most is backend and client. So backend is basically when the browser requests the data from the SaaS application, for example salesforce.com, right? And the time it takes for that to come back, that is your backend load time. Client load time is the time it takes to render it inside your browser. Now, why is that distinction important? All of these, if you start talking to like SaaS application owners, they will know what all these things mean in detail. But from a kind of like a level one or even like typical desktop admin, I mean, I'm not an expert on SaaS application. Backend means it is often the app side. It is, if it's a SaaS application, you don't always have a whole lot of control over that, right? I mean, you can call Microsoft that Office is slow, but what are you going to do, right? Or what are they going to do? Probably better. If it's client, it could be something with the browser, could be a plugin, could be your network. So it is interesting to kind of like have these different breakdowns so that you can kind of like be more targeted in your troubleshooting. Okay, so now we're going to kind of like go back to the last hour and see if the problem resolved itself or if I will have to spend some time yelling at people here when the call is over. Oh, there we go. Well, there we go. So it just took a little bit of time. Uh, I guess I didn't talk slowly enough to kind of like, but you see that here's your 3 seconds, right? This is what we saw. I think I still have it open, right? Here you got the 3 seconds here. There it is. So total was 3:15, 3:15. If we go over here, it's 3069, 307 rounded up. So this is your slow load time, the client load time. If we go to the other one, let me just go what we had here. That was this one. Let me see if that one loads now as well. Oh, I see what I actually, it is kind of my fault. There is a small open bug that if it's the only app that's running, when you click on here, it doesn't work, but when you click on here, it should work. So this one is, let's see, there we go. Now the 5 seconds. I'm still missing something. I'll pick it up later on with our friends in engineering to see, why. I know that I can't click on here. That's the bug, but I don't know why I can't kind of like get to that particular time frame. So we'll fix that. Anyway, so employee centric, quickly pinpoint the issue. Now, fixing SaaS applications are a little bit complicated because sometimes you have control over it. The interesting thing is what I have seen a lot is that they often relate to another issue. So this kind of like this correlation, let me go back to the last 4 hours here, being able to kind of like look at what else is going on. Is there maybe a CPU issue that is impacting the browser and therefore the performance load times? Is there a networking issue? Right? Maybe it's poor Wi-Fi. That will typically lead to slow client load time. So this really gives IT admins and a really great starting point for fixing issues. So I'm going to, before I switch gears and talk about the application-centric view, because we looked at the employee-centric view, I'm going to look here at my screen. I see some questions. Yes, this is a browser plugin that monitors web page performance and reports back to CU. So let's talk about that here in a minute. Let me just have a look. Oh, well, Eugene, perfect, because I was going to kind of like talk about how you deploy this. So
And Joel, there's one other question that I lost in the list, but I wrote it down. So it says, in terms of setup, could you explain the onboarding process for turning on ControlUp for apps?
perfect. We'll take all these three questions together and
Perfect.
kind of like cover all of them. So when you log in for the very first time, or when you start using it for the very first time, you should be getting something that looks like, let me just see, I'm trying to kind of like reproduce the scenario that is status. All right, let me just see if it is. You get something like this. So this is the very first time. Let me just move this out of the way. The very first time when you start a trial or you are licensed for it, you get this, which is basically a wizard. Now, it can automatically, so there's a couple of elements here. There is, you already have the ControlUp for desktops agent, right? This was the prerequisite I talked about earlier. And ControlUp for apps basically has two parts. It has a module that plugs into the the ControlUp for desktops agent. And then there's the extension. So there's two parts to it. This one here is basically installing the agent module needed to transfer the data between the browser extension. There's all kinds of technology, WebSockets, local WebSockets, etc. But basically hands it off to the ControlUp for Desktops agent and then loads up into your tenant. So this is the first part. You can, as part of the wizard, you can say, okay, yeah, just deploy it to all my devices. If it doesn't have any overhead, if you're not actually using any if you're not doing any monitoring, so it's fairly low risk. But if you choose to kind of like roll it out to a smaller part, you can just say do not deploy. Then you say, okay, do you want to deploy the browser extension? Again, there's two options here. Uh, First of all, you can say yes or no, right? Automatically push it out. That will automatically, through our agent, push it into your Edge and Chrome browsers on all your devices. So that is distribution through us. In the documentation, you will also find how to do this through GPO. So you can, this is not an extension that you can just go to the add-on store and install and download as an end user. As an IT admin, you are in control. You can either deploy it through ControlUp or you can do it through whatever deployment method you use, including group policies. So the third step, so there's only 3 steps, is which applications do you want to monitor? Now, we don't know every application in the world, especially not your in-house apps. But what we did is we basically looked at what are the 30 most used apps in the world, and we basically added templates. Let's call them templates for that. Because any app, right, we need to kind of like know what we will be looking for, right? So if you look at Salesforce, for example, it should be in here. Salesforce, where are you? Salesforce. I already modified mine. Is an existing environment, but normally we just say star.lightning.force.com and star.my.salesforce.com. So you see that one app has 2 different domains, 2 different URLs. So some of them are even worse. Don't know if the like Zoho, right? So the Zoho suite has a whole bunch of different URLs. So you only have to check the box here, and then what we add what's called an application group. So that would be the first step. So I'm going to disable this and go, what would you do next? So now I have everything deployed, or maybe not, right? You can also just go to the settings, go to control for apps, and then manually deploy the extensions. And I think that, there we go. It somehow saved it. Did I click on save? I thought I clicked on cancel, but okay. So I'm just going to click on apply here. So if you're familiar with ControlUp for desktops, you can, there's only one version at the moment, but you can say, okay, just deploy it to this group. So uh, um, uh, you can control it the way you are used to with the ControlUp for desktops agent. So now I have the agent module plus the extension deployed. I have a bunch of applications that I added, which you will find under your application groups. So if I go to app groups for my employee settings, there are all my applications. Here I can add additional applications. So if I have like, okay, my web app, right, I would just say, okay, my web app's URL is, I'm just making something up, 7zip.org. That's not mine, by the way. I do the checkbox, right? I click on submit, I'm done. So for example, that script-based app that I showed you earlier, I already added that, which is here, my super important app, right? If I look at that, you see it monitors scriptbase.com, it monitors with ControlUp for apps. So now I've done the second part. So I have the agent and the extensions deployed. I added my applications, some through the wizard, out of the box. I don't have to do anything else. Maybe some of my own apps. The last thing I need to do is set up a scoring profile. Now, I modified mine to be better for demos, but there will be this built-in profile called SaaS apps something. I forgot the original name. I'm not going to revert to it. But that basically is a predefined, it will have only browsers in it. So you will need to add the applications that you have, the app groups that you created to it. but it will basically have the three main metrics that we showed earlier: page load time, the hard errors, page load, and time to first buy. So those are the three metrics that we kind of like capture from the Vibe. With your thresholds, now, if you just use the out of the box, that's what I would start with. It works for most customers. I just have them modified because I want it to be a little bit more aggressive, so I can show you, all the reds and the ambers. So then you're done. Now, in my blog post, I'm not sure if Doug said something about I'm going to share links. Maybe he can share. Actually, we have it in the community, right? All the links
I
to.
will get it. I'll put it in the chat. I'll go find that.
Yeah. Um, I have a bunch of videos, like three videos in there that walk you through what I just did, and the videos combined are like less than 9 minutes, and I explain everything, right? So you could really kind of like do this in about 5 minutes. I'm just going to look at the screen here again. Basically, it's a browser plugin that monitors web page performance and reports back to ControlUp. Brian, that is correct. Um, Now, we hide a lot of the complexity. So we collect a whole lot of information. Some information we will be using in the future, but just like you have with other parts of ControlUp for desktops, and yes, Doug, currently it is ControlUp for desktops only. You can, of course, run the ControlUp for desktops agent in your VDI environment and then use it as well. We are looking into bringing this possibly in the future more broadly, but currently there's no kind of like clear kind of like timeline that I can give you. So today, this is focused on our DEX ControlUp for desktop solution. Now, where do we store the data? For those people, and I know Eugene, you know this stuff. We have all these indexes typically for, yeah, it's more for advanced use, but we have these two new built-in indexes. They're still called AppDX. That was going to be the name until we changed it. But we have one index with all the errors that happened, and then we have one index with all the navigations. Now, again, there's some technology involved here. There is something called a soft navigation and a hard navigation. Hard navigations is basically if the whole page reloads, right? I click on a button, it reloads the whole page. That is a hard navigation. Soft navigation is more kind of like modern platforms like React apps and things like that. Single page apps like, for example, Salesforce, right? It doesn't reload your whole page. You might click on something and only a part of the data gets updated, but the page remains static. It just updates some of the data or a widget or something like that. All that stuff, there's a lot of things happening, right? Again, if you open developer tools in your browser, you will see that a lot of things are happening when you do that. I mean, even if I go to, let me just go to another one here, and I pull up the developer tools, and I go to app.controlup.com. Right, there is, look, there's all kinds of stuff happening. If I click on something, right, there's even more happening. We capture all these redirects and these navigations, etc., and we store them in this index. So you get a lot of information. Most people don't need this, but we are using this for our application-centric dashboards. And let's have a look at that now. Let me just have a look here at the screen. No additional firewall requirements. So it is using the same connection that you already have with ControlUp for Desktops agent, which is just outbound 443. I think I caught all the other questions that are in here. So, and I'm looking at the time. We have 10 minutes left. All right. So we talked about the employee-centric dashboard. We looked at the agent deployment, minutes, not hours, no complicated setup. Yes, will there be a little bit of tuning once you have it running for some time? Absolutely, right? You might have to create different scoring profiles because you maybe have applications that are slower than others, right? You already know that, or you can see it. Now, does that mean that you maybe want to change that? Sure, but it's very hard to say one size fits all for the scoring profile, right? The average enterprise has, I believe, 113 different SaaS applications in use. They are not a monolith, right? They behave different. Some applications are just maybe not written as well. So you can't just say like, oh, every app, the baseline is like 2000 milliseconds for page load time. You don't know that. So you will need to start monitoring for a little bit and then maybe create some new profiles, move some apps around between the different profiles to kind of like find your sweet spot. For those people that use our VDI solution, we recommend a similar thing for our VDI stress levels, right? Out of the box, you got a bunch of stress levels. Do they work for you? Maybe not, right? Maybe you need to make some adjustments. Again, our customer success team, together with our professional services team, more than happy to assist with any of those. So, application-centric view. I don't have a whole lot of apps here. Right? Like I said, this is a demo environment. Probably if I go to 30 days, you see some more. There we go. Now, because I increased the time period, the kind of like scoring over the time period can change, right? Because the data set changes. But you can see I have some good apps. I have some, yeah, Amber, probably not great. If I go to just look over the last 7 days, I know why this is because this is literally one person. We we create some bad effects here. So if you see red, that's definitely worth looking at. But in general, you see that there are a bunch of apps in use. So I'm just going to use ControlUp. Now, I'm looking at the last 7 days. The good thing is that everything is green. Now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, we assign an application score. So there's the experience score for the user. This is an application-centric score, which is pretty good. It actually went up zero point 0.1 point over the previous score. Now, what does the previous score mean? It's basically the time period before. So if I'm looking at 7 days, it's the 7 days before that. Page load time improved with 37%. My average time to first byte. So these are all good things. I would like to say that because we made updates on our platform, we improved that because this is of course a SaaS app that you don't control. So I always like to see green. That's positive. Now, errors 174. That's not a lot, by the way. And the good thing is these are all errors. So I talked about soft errors and hard errors. Um, Here you can see that currently there is two of the three metrics. I talked about the three metrics, right? Hard errors, time to first byte, and page load. I only see 2 out of 3. That means that there were no hard errors. That is good news. If I go to an application like this one, there were, and that is seems to be, yeah, it wasn't mail to Google. I don't know what application he was using. That was definitely not Meet. So Drive, Google Drive, uh, through 66 hard errors. This was Skier Jeff. I need to talk to Jeff what he was doing here. Error blocked by response. But I can also kind of like jump to Jeff. So I can kind of like go the other way, right? I can start in the application and jump to the employee. But you can see I need to talk to Jeff. I need to kind of like reach out to him to kind of like understand, or I can maybe do some self troubleshooting to kind of see what's going on. But in this case, right? I get to see hard errors and page load. There were no time to first byte errors. So it automatically updates, uh, this grid to show you where there's issues. For those people that have used our employee views, it's very similar to what we do with app crashes, like Windows app crashes. So again, I can look into this. Here I see some page load performance issues for 3 different users, Adele, Paddy, and Timothy. Again, definitely Timothy was affected by that. I can drill down here and then go back to the employee view. But we're here to look at the application-centric view. And this is where you get more data. When I scroll down, I get the page load performance over time. This is an average across all users, good or bad, everything. I can click on more. Now I'm going to exclude all the good. Now I'm only looking at the bad. So now I get to get more details about which particular pages were having, load issues. So now I'm going deeper and deeper and get better understanding of like, hey, maybe there's a certain page in this app that is poor. Right? Very application centric. This is the application owner. This is, the maybe the desktop team. Not something that a level one support person would be dealing with, right? They can like maybe see, oh, backend load issues. I'm going to escalate. Now you go in here and you get more details. For page load, same for time to first byte. I can like filter, right? I can say, okay, this OAuth page. Again, I need to talk to a lot of people. I need to talk to Timothy. I need to talk to Jeff. But again, right, I get much more detail here about this particular page, which I filtered by, to kind of like further guide my troubleshooting, but now from an application centric point of view. Same with errors. Again, all errors. If I click on it, I get my hard errors, which was only, actually, I get all my errors, but you can see 0 errors, right? I think I could, maybe that hasn't been implemented yet, but I can definitely, there will be a way to kind of like filter out all the soft errors. But very much what you will see, just like with our other products, drill down into the issue to get a better understanding and then to help you understand what these issues are. So, 2 minutes left. I am going to stop sharing my screen. It's a fantastic product. Doug, did you learn something?
I did. I learned actually a tremendous amount, to be honest with you. So it's really neat. I love this, and I'm really looking forward to the direction it's going to. I think you mentioned this is really 1.0 technology. Although it's more than 1.0, right?
One,
It's
1.1 at least, I say, yeah.
yes, exactly. But it's the first release of it, and
Yeah, and I always
it can.
like to use the example of PowerPoint. Since we started with PowerPoint, maybe we can end on PowerPoint. When you send me a SharePoint link, or when you send me a PowerPoint link, it's a SharePoint link, right? And if I click on it, PowerPoint on the web appears. Well, what do? I like my local app, so I click on the button, edit, poof, open in local. I use a SaaS application and a local application, right? The performance, is different, right?
Yeah.
So bringing these two worlds together is really kind of like where we're going next, right? Like bringing these things together.
Perfect, perfect. Joel, thank you very much. Folks out there, I hope you learned something also. I'm easy. I always learn something. It's because I don't know very much. So I got a big world out there I can learn from. But if you who do know very much, I hope you learned something. And if not, please let us know. If there's, again, additional topics you want for future meetups, let us know. Definitely check out Saban's office hours. Those are really good. And they're more, interactive than this is, right? It's you're actually talking with her. Although this is pretty interactive too. I mean, it's very casual, right? It's not.
I looked at the Q&A. There was some. I
I
haven't
I
looked at the
understand. I'm
chat at
just
all.
saying,
Like,
it's more of a one-on-one type of deal, or
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean. So
That's why you get both me and Sivan. So that's yeah.
correct, correct. So and we sort of planned it this way, put Joe on first, and then you come in anything you haven't learned or want to learn a little bit more about, go ask someone. But always ask the community too. Please let us know. 2025 is going to be a great year. So this is our first release. We have many other great things planned, things I don't even know about, which I don't want to know about because I'll tell you. On that note, Joel, I thank you so much. Yeah, what do I say? We're ready to call this quits. We did our
Yeah.
job.
Quick question for you, Gene, on on
Sure.
on on
Oh,
on,
yes,
on the
last
finish
one, last
line.
one.
We are definitely planning for macOS. Linux, we would love to get some of your input. We have looked at like thin clients like Chromium support, but if you have any particular things, Dennis Van Dam is the PM. Yeah, he hates when I do this. Like, don't reach out to him directly.
No, dude, totally,
Okay,
totally mess with Dennis. Dennis is Dutch. You can mess with him all day long. So Dennis
there
is the
you go.
best. He is really the best. So definitely, and he's in the community also. So if you have a question, go directly to Dennis. Joel
Exactly.
said it. Joel said
Yeah.
it.
And we'll
Dennis
send the
Von
links
Dam.
in the community chat. I think, Doug, you put them in last week, but maybe we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
go
I'm
open
going.
them
That's
up.
one of the other things I'm going to do. I did it Friday on LinkedIn, but I'm actually putting together a long list of all the links of all these articles and knowledge base articles and things like that. So have just one stop for this for what we know today. and hopefully I'll get that posted today, if not tomorrow. But I think I'm done. But now I need to go find, make sure I didn't forget anything. So
Uh,
on that note, we're just rambling now, Joel.
we
We
are.
started
We
2 minutes late. We'll end 2 minutes late. It'll be 60 minutes on the nose. We'll mic drop out of here. Sound good?
Perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. Look forward to the next one. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. On that note, have a wonderful day. And next time I'll be in Berlin.